And before we bring the judges, or specifically Ray, on stage to announce the winner of the pitch competition, I would like to invite the founder of the boot camp, Dr. Rachel Slabaugh, on stage for a couple closing remarks.
All right, so thank you all for joining. Thanks for coming to the closing session. Anybody who's watching online, thank you also for tuning in. So this year was quite different from last year, which was quite different from the year before that. But something that hasn't changed is that many, many committed people came together to make this boot camp amazing. So first, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors and all of our supporters. Terrestrial, thank you for showing up and tweeting live. We couldn't have done any of this without you. We've had roughly 10 organizers, 10 volunteers, 30 mentors, and 60 speakers donate their time and energy to the boot camp. This year, the work was shared across people and organizations as the boot camp evolves to a more sustainable model. The theme for how I felt personally about this boot camp year was superheroes. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my superheroes of the boot camp because, as many of you know, I have 2 jobs now, so I wasn't involved in the same way as I was before. So the 3 people who made sure we had a venue, that we fed and housed the students, and that we had funding to pay for all those things were Sarah Harmon from Berkeley, Ashley Finan from the Nuclear Innovation Alliance, and Brett Rampal from the Clean Air Task Force. They put in a tremendous amount of time and effort. Adrian Coué from the University of Wisconsin led the content organization, making sure we had good programming, and he was helped by Sama Bilbao Ilian from Virginia Commonwealth, Rashida Gust from Berkeley, and Cruz Shervin from MIT. We also had some key students who you've probably met most of them at this point physically running the boot camp. They organized the mentor program, they scheduled the volunteers, and they fundamentally just basically did all the things. That was Alex Young, Mitch Negus, Josh Rayhack, Milish Otz, Kathy Shield, and Caroline Hughes. And finally, we had an advisory board who helped to make sure we weren't totally going to run this thing into the ground. That was Todd Allen from UW-Madison, Gigi Wang from Satarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology here at Berkeley, Rita Baranwal from the Gateway for Accelerated Innovation in Nuclear, and Jordi Rogans-Ribas from Argonne. And so more than anything, I'd like to express how much this really was a team effort this year, and it took a village. So thank all of you wonderful people who made all of this happen. You totally were my superheroes this year in building a clean energy future. And we're not quite finished yet because you gave me a microphone. I have something to say to this year's innovators. So welcome. You are part of a new community. You are now boot camp alumni. And I have learned that actually means something. So I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the alumni for the first 2 years are here and really woven into the fabric of the boot camp. They're organizers, they're mentors, they're speakers, they're volunteers. They give to create the community they want to exist. And so the people who have gone through the boot camp have something different, a different perspective, a different set of training, a broader view. You get to bring that with you. Whether you start a company or work at a laboratory or work at a company or leave the field, you get to bring that broader perspective with you. You get to see the problem facets and solution spaces differently. You have a different context. So welcome. I charge you with using what you have learned in your careers. I also charge you with spreading the word about the boot camp. We need to make this community larger and to continue to diversify it. Share it with your peers, technical and non-technical, domestic and international, new to the field and more experienced. And remember what you learned. Remember what I said the first day. The future is not yet written. We don't know what will happen next. That's why it's exciting, and that's why it's worth doubling down and working hard. We have the opportunity to imagine nuclear. We have the opportunity to write the future. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing all the work. I'm proud of you all. Thank you. with that, I'd like to welcome Ray Rothrock, one of the very major foundational sponsors this year, to the stage to come tell us what the judges would like to say.
Thank you, Rich. Do you have that drum roll sound effect ready to go? Good, thank you. Well, yeah, you guys. Yep. Well, welcome, and thanks for having us here today, and thank you all for the great pitches, Berkeley, Rachel. Just it's pretty cool, my fellow judges. This was a hard process, as you can imagine. You know, I was a VC for 25 years. I saw about 10,000 presentations, and one of the best things every year that just gets more creative and more interesting and more exciting to watch. Your ideas were just creative breath, just really cool. It's you folks are on your way, and as Rachel said, you're now in a unique community, and maybe you should start a yearbook or something and show where people go. So our process was not easy. We worked hard at it. We didn't know we were going to work so hard on a late Friday afternoon, did we? But each of them, we're going to have a couple of comments so that you take something away publicly, what we say, and then I'll announce the winner. So going in the order of presentation, Adrian's going to talk about Sarah Bellick.
Okay.
Good mind.
Yeah. So thanks, Sarah Bellick. We enjoyed your presentation. So what we liked about what you were doing was you were really targeting a key pain point, you know, talking to customers, figuring out what they need, and you were kind of combining that key pain point with a new technology and a new tool. And you know, often that's where innovation is happening, is kind of this interaction between key pain points and new tools. So we really liked that you were doing that. You know, your presentation, I would say, sparked a lot of thoughts. So, you know, finding cracks in pipes was one example that you gave, but you know, also my brain was working in the background thinking, oh, there's a lot of other things you could do potentially with machine learning or other types of models to find things in a system related to labor where you could reduce costs. So that was very good. In terms of what could potentially be done better, what we would have really liked to have seen, and you got part of the way there in your presentation, was to look at all the O&M costs, pick the top 3, and then give us a very specific example of how specifically machine learning could be used to reduce cost and by how much for each of those. Because we weren't entirely satisfied with the one example that you gave us. And another thing is machine learning is very seductive. Everyone wants to use it for all the problems. And you know, typically, you know, you'd often hear this with the machine learning guys, garbage in, garbage out. You need to have good data to make a good machine learning model to, you know, get the stuff that you want. So we weren't really clear if you'd be able to get the data that you would need. So we would need more justification there. And that's it. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Adrian. Thanks a lot. Okay, Will's going to cover reactions for action.
Yeah, so thanks very much for your presentation, and it's such a critical issue that you guys are attacking, so I'm really glad you're excited about that. I think it's very smart that you're choosing to laser focus on those 5 state capitals and target the certain demographic, like the millennial demographics there, to help spread the message. If you could also extend that to, you know, there's probably nuclear plants nearby. You could extend school trips or other ways of incepting that knowledge of nuclear and familiarity with it. That'd be great. I think you're also right that attaching it to climate is the slam dunk. I mean, I think the stat of 2/3 of all zero emissions electricity coming from nuclear was one of the things that won me over. And then for some additional feedback, I'd say it seems like it's going to be hard to sustain it going solo. So definitely partner and choose your partners wisely. So you know, there are some groups out there like EDF that, you know, maybe their members might be starting to get receptive. But even if you can just work with any groups out there and sort of, you know, your contribution is social media savvy, and if you can perhaps act as that arm for them so that they can provide an authentic message and they don't try to do it and kind of screw it up, that could be one way to go. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks. Phil, testing and irradiation materials.
Really?
No, sorry, three transient. Malcolm. Okay. I got out of order.
For transient, we felt that this was one of the better businesses out there. It looks like a really big business with a lot of potential for growth. We felt that we had to infer a bit more of the business justification than we wanted to. So I think you spelled out why renewables aren't great for disaster situations. The argument against diesel seemed a little thinner than I think it actually is. I think the argument is about supply chains, that kind of thing, whereas the argument that I heard was diesel makes emissions, and like, okay, but for a disaster, do I really care about that? Even though I care about it a lot. I think the presentation could have been made stronger by talking about the cost of electricity, the cost that you needed to hit, how your costs would break down, like what it costs to move these things around, that kind of thing. And of course, when the reactors will become available and what you'll do in the meantime. So a lot of that came out in the questions, and I think if you could put it in your presentation, that would be stronger.
Thanks. Okay, number 4 in order. Okay, I get this right now. There's only one left. Go, Phil.
All right, so this is testing and irradiation of materials. So something that we all liked is that you pointed out a challenge, which I personally hadn't thought that much about, for all the new nuclear startups in the space, which is there's a particular testing challenge, which is particular to the nuclear space, which is the performance of materials under neutron bombardment. You talked about how there was a real bottleneck, how this was kind of slowing the entire space down. And then you really made us believe that if you brought up this kind of new capacity, that we could kind of see an acceleration across the entire space. So we think that was great, made us think about it. We were also happy that there was no one on your team named Tim. That would have been weird. But just in terms of other stuff, and of course you only had 5 minutes, so I'm sure that you had probably 5 backup slides for every question we were going to ask. We were all impressed that when I asked a question, you had the exact backup slide, which answered the question. But I think a bit more about the feasibility of using a deuterium-tritium fusion reaction to get neutrons. If any of you are interested, you should read the book Radioactive Boy Scout, which is about a guy who got americium from like smoke detectors and made neutrons. So maybe you guys could be a bit more inventive. I'm not sure. But just the discussion of why deuterium and tritium, and in particular, tritium's kind of expensive. Getting 1 neutron from 1 tritium seems to be kind of a crime against the nuclear force. But just a bit of elaboration on that as to why that particular neutron source. And then the other thing was, you are basically enabling all of these startups. So if one of them makes it big, is there a way that you're going to be able to grow with the industry and kind of grow your revenue so that you profit off of this thing that you enable? So that's it.
Thanks. Well, we hope that was very helpful to you all. There's obviously more to do, and I'm sure your plans are very deep. So as all superheroes are, we are here to announce the one that we thought was the most likely to succeed, I suppose you could say, and that would be the...
Drum roll?
Yeah, please. Okay, thank you. That was very important. We selected testing and irradiation of materials as the number 1. And since I have the microphone and I sort of get the last word here, so it was a business sooner rather than others. But I must tell you, the guys at Transient, I'll be your first customer. So go forth and prosper. So thank you very much. And it's exactly 5 o'clock, and I think there's a reception that follows. And thank you all. Good luck in all your future. We're done. Yeah. Okay.